Alright, so I'm decided to continue with a few book reviews on here. I also have a comic which I want to review real quick, but getting on to the book reviews, I'm going to review Vampire Hunter D, and I'm going to do kind of some rapid-fire reviews. Depending on how well you like my explanation about the book series thus far, feel free to let me know, and in time I will further elaborate on each of the books as they come out, since apparently no one else has talked about them on here. I know people are still out there reading them, but not really been discussed on here before, so, hopefully I can get up to that task. I'm going to review Vampire Hunter D, the source material to the two great anime movies, which is written by Japanese author Hiroyuki Kikuchi, who is considered somewhat to be the Stephen King of Japanese horror. Although, this is not really horror, in my opinion. It's a little more of science fiction. I would say that Koji Suzuki, who wrote the Ring series, is actually a little bit more in the line of Stephen King, but I'll come to him in another video. Everybody knows, or at least if you watch anime on a regular basis, you know the two Vampire Hunter D movies. I will say this about them right now. The first one is good. It's based on the first Vampire Hunter D novel, which is simply titled Vampire Hunter D, and each one that follows has a subtitle up underneath it. I find after reading this book that it is much superior to the movie. The movie is not bad. It's good for its time, but after reading this, it's so much better. The catch you should know is that as I actually review these, I've only read through this series once, but if I liked it well enough, I'll remember it. And then there's certain points to where I'm kind of confused, which concerns the dialogue in this book, which I'll address shortly, or just I couldn't really understand what was going on in the story period, and it's all kind of hazy to me. The movie that they adapted, I'm going to probably say, is a 70% adaptation of this book. I don't really need to explain the story. It's just pretty good. Everything about the story, though, for those that have watched the Vampire Hunter D movies, I will say, everything is completely over the top. We have a lot more back history in this, which is why the source material is so great. This is just true escapism. Apparently the story, the series takes place in the year 12,090 AD. And D is the half-breed son of Dracula and a human woman. Now, as I say, Dracula, there's kind of a running joke in the books of people asking who D's father is, and apparently, they're always saying, well, it starts with a D, and it's Dracula, and they can never finish it, but the author is just like sitting there totally winking at you, telling you who it is, and a lot of cliches are carried on like this with this Dracula joke, as well as aspects of D's personality. Everything is completely over the top in this. Like, apparently sometime back in '99, there was a huge nuclear war, devastated the world, and for the last 10,000 years, man has gradually regressed back into a feudal state. This mainly takes place in the Japanese country, but they call it the frontier. Like, we've made huge advances in technology, but we still live like feudal people. Vampires have asserted themselves back in the day as the nobility, and Dracula was the sacred ancestor, and somehow the vampires have gradually died down, and nobody really knows why. D is hired by a young girl named Doris Lang to kill Count Magnus Lee, who bit her and wants her as his vampire bride. If you watch the movie, Regensei is in this story. The four particular monsters that worked at Magnus Lee's castle actually work for Regensei in this movie because he's a free agent. We've got a lot more character stuff going on with him, as well as Dan and the little bastard from the first movie known as Greco. It's a terrific story. Like I said, this, in my opinion, the original source material is so much better than the first movie. But here's the catch about it, however. Um, Kevin LaHaye is responsible for the adaptation from Japanese to English with these books. So while I thank him for adapting it to English, unfortunately we have a slight problem, which is that he keeps it in the flow of the Japanese language. Now, obviously, the words and sentences are arranged to where we can understand and make sense of it. Unfortunately, however, when it comes to the action and a lot of the fighting in the story, it's like watching DBZ or any anime that has fighting where the characters are standing there saying, I'll perform a particular move, and then we get an explanation of why it moves, and it takes a long time to get through the fight. Still fun, but a little bit on the dragging the feet side, and it takes a little bit, but you know it's still pretty good. Dee's personality in this, like in the first book, Dee swears, not constantly, but he swears a lot, and you know he even teases everybody a little bit at times. But after book one, he just becomes a completely wooden person. Like, if anybody watched the Sarah Connor Chronicles, and you know how Summer Glau's Terminator character, you know, was fun and had a bit of a personality, and then for the rest of the series after the pilot, she was just very robotic. That's pretty much the way it is with Dee, but Left Hand is still funny when he's in this. So yeah, the first book, definitely worth reading. I highly recommend checking it out. And as for the others I have with me, I will review the first 9 right now, rapid fires, and if people like this well enough, let me know. And I will break down each book subsequently a little more. Razor of Gales concerns a problem with Dee coming to the village of Tepes being hired out because apparently vampires are walking in sunlight, which is something that should not happen. We get a lot more backstory, not really telling where Dee comes from exactly, but a lot of the nature that's explained about him will pretty much fill in the blanks on how exactly the eugenics of him coming to be. And I'm not talking about the vampire sleeping with the human woman. There's a little bit of genetic engineering going on Dampiers in this story, and we even have an appearance from Dracula himself within the story, which is very, very interesting. Great book. Highly recommend this. Demon Death Chase, which is what Bloodlust was based off of. I'm going to say this right now. Everything about this book is, after we leave the Barbaroi village, not what the movie has. Carmel the Blood Countess is not present in this. The girl, which was named Charlotte Elborn in the movie, she just called the girl, has no name. And the Marcus brothers, who were, you know, halfway decent guys to Layla, are just as much monsters as the Barbaroi fighters themselves that Baron Meyerling enlists. Still a good book, a little bit of a lackluster ending, but, you know, still worth the read. Tale of the Dead Town, which involves Dee being hired on in a floating, or a flying city, which is held on, like, this huge, huge platform, and he's invited along with a girl he rescues named Lori Knight, who has a deep secret that determines a lot of bad history within the town, as well as a mercenary named John M. Rosselli Pluto VIII. Yes, that's actually his freaking name. And he's kind of like a pimp named Slickback from the Boondocks. You have to say the whole thing to make it right to him. Fortunately, the author does not indulge us on this when saying his name. And we have a mysterious outbreak of vampirism in this story. The book is halfway decent. It's not really my favorite, but, you know, it's still a halfway decent read. We get a little more history on this. And that's the thing as the books go along, too. We have a slight subplot concerning Dee coming along after Dracula. He hates his father, and as you read these books each little time, you get a little more of the story of what this guy has been up to concerning why the vampires are disappearing as well. The Stuff of Dreams. This and The Pilgrimage of the Sacred and Profane. I didn't really get a lot of this book. Concerns sort of a Sleeping Beauty story. about a girl who was bitten by a vampire and she's been sleeping for a long time. I'm kind of hazy on this one. If I give it another reread through, I might review it more properly, but yeah, that's up to you whether or not you want to read it. And pretty much the same thing for this. Dee is protecting a young girl who has been raped and is pregnant with a noble's child. And he and this old woman and two other bounty hunters that were hired to take out Dee have to make a quest somewhere. I'm still kind of hazy on this one. It's so-so. Mysterious Journey to the North Sea. Excellent, excellent read. Book one kind of falters because it's mostly setup material, but the second part is really good. I'm going to talk about these a little more on my First Thoughts video for Vampire Hunter D3, because apparently this is being made and it's going to be based off of this. So that's going to be something else I'll talk about. Number 9, Rose Princess. This is okay. This concerns Dee being hired to help a biker girl and her friends after a vampire princess who is living in their town. This guy from the village tries to kill them and the guy gets away. So basically the noble woman holds them hostage along with her 4 knights, and if this guy is not found after a certain time, she'll slaughter the village, and Dee shows up to help take care of the matter at hand. Really good twist at the end of this book. It's okay, but you know, it's still worth to read. And finally, for the ones that I have read, Dark Nocturne so far, this is okay. 3 short stories in here, and I do terrible at reading anthologies. I've only read the first story in this, so I have to go back and give this one a reread. But, you know, if I reread through these properly at some point, I'm still going to read the other books before I decide to reread back through the series. I've got a lot of freaking books that I want to read, but, you know, this is just on my to-do list. So, this is kind of just the rapid-fire reviews for the books that I have liked. If you want me to review more of these, please elaborate, and I will be happy to break down the other novels following the first one. And, pretty much, you know the routine. Comment, rate, subscribe, you know the thing. I'll catch you guys next time.